3 taking control. That cybernetic comp really coming into play. Irelia really showing up. She's good at the cyber, as someone might say from a couple years ago. But let's talk about it. Why has this particular version of that cyber comp finally won a lobby versus the other versions that have gotten top fours but hasn't technically been able to overcome the ASOL from last lobby?
Well, I think the difference with this one is that their composition is very good for Dreamericaa. I mean, it was a little concerning at one point because we saw both Irelias just on that Poppy and Poppy tanking the world out there. But I think the last was to pull through and just having two Irelia 2s was just too much damage and it was just able to sweep through the second they were able to get through that Poppy. The Azel 2, again, as mentioned before, I think it's a little trickier for sure, just because it's this
Yeah.
giant spaceship that doesn't get CC and it's just going around the entire place. So Last Story doesn't technically help there because it's not per se armor building mechanic, but War Moth,
Mhm.
Giant Claw, etc. Those are other stuff that kind of helps to heal back up and while killing everyone else off. So definitely very interesting to see. I mean, Dreamericaa did have that insane start for her third game where she was able to get her Irelia 2 at level 6. And then we saw in round 2 of or sorry, round 1 with Natures, he was able to win with Cybernetics because of a tier 3 Irelia.
So Nature's, if he actually, I think no one can beat him. I think he's already won with 38 because if Adreh gets 13, then that's 39, and Nature's lowest point total is 3, and that'll put him over that mark. So Nature's feeling, man, that's not 13, 13, 12. Have we seen this before in Fight Night, Rissa? Has someone else kind of come into these lobbies and just absolutely destroyed like this?
Oh, yeah, we have gotten similar situations where 112 or 111 has happened before, and that unfortunately we don't have a close enough lobby for, but we have seen situations where someone got a 111 and were able to lose. And actually, that happened to myself when I was a Fight Night competitor months ago with Ocean Mage. I went first, and then I just threw the game and was like playing with my dog, and I went eighth on my last game. And Sphinx, who was very consistent himself, who was a player who was going second, won that game. And so, due to that consistency, Sphinx was able to take the lead. So, Nature's here. Luckily for him, no one's close enough, but there has been scenarios where someone goes 1-1-2, but then bottoms out, and another person will still take that victory.
So even everyone down, I think everyone else actually has a chance at top 3 still. Natures will be winning Fight Night in 3 lobbies. That's actually that's incredibly impressive. But now it's all about who the other 2 will be. You got to give props to Dreamericaa because look at that, 3 points to start things off. And I think to start things off like that, you got to give her even more credit to kind of claw it back in terms of confidence because I think a lesser player might have given up a little earlier, but that cybernetic comp really, really showing up real good. Gnard Dawg, that's an up and down player for you. 5, 12, and 3 for him. But if you were to finish out this top 3 based off of what we've seen in this lobby so far, who you got? If you had $1 to,
If I got
to
my
bet on
one
the rest of
dollar,
the top 3, who would it be?
I think honestly is what we see here. Personal bias wise, I want Gunmay to be able to go over and get it because he's been playing Space Champ, he played Candyland, and he played the Pikachu comp for me. So I won't. So not because I think he will get first in the lobby and take over, but because I have my bias of the comps he's been playing that I want Gome. I put my dollar in for him. But other than him, two other players that I'm looking at is definitely Dreamericaa. Besides the first game where she low rolls a lot, she plays Cybernetics very consistently. And then we also have Adreh here who plays early to mid game. Actually, maybe one of the best early to mid game player out of all the players. And that is enough to guarantee him the top 4, even as his late game falls off a bit.
All right, are you ready to get philosophical, Rissa? I've got a question for you. I think
Oh, okay.
it is the TFT question. So I'm a big tennis fan, and a couple years ago, there is a player named Caroline Wozniacki that became #1 without winning a major. So she's kind of like the definition of consistency being queen at that moment in time, right? Having never won a major tournament, she's still number one. So there was a lot of debate as to whether she deserved it or not. So I think we can kind of take that same concept here in TFT, where it's if you, what is more impressive to you? Is it Adreh's consistency in getting top four, not necessarily winning the lobby, but maintaining his position in the top four throughout all the games, or is it someone like Nature's who wins two lobbies, but potentially might get eighth in the last one?
So for me, I think my type of view is actually going to be very different from a lot of competitive players I know, and we've had these discussions, which is why I say that. Because a lot of times where I say like I won a game, when I top four, I consider that a victory for myself. But they're like, "Oh, so you went first?" I'm like, "Oh no, I went like second." They're like, "So you didn't win." And so the idea, and I do agree to a certain extent. Yeah, first place is just so valuable. Like getting first place and getting fourth, there's definitely a lot more value to give to the player who can get first place, just because it takes so much more skill for that one. But in competitive setting and ladder setting, I feel like a lot of times playing for the top four is the smart play.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just a completely different style. I see merit in both sides. For me, I'm definitely
Yeah.
a top four consistent player. I think there's a lot of merit to be able to play smart every single game. But I think you kind of have to take the other step, because then in that case, you're never going to be first in a tournament because you're not constantly aiming for that number one spot.
And that was what Wozniak did finally win a major eventually, but that was after she wasn't number one anymore. And I think that just goes to show, like, you can be as consistent as possible. If you can't win the big one, how do you put your place in history for a game, whether it be tennis, football, or even a game like TFT? Because we remember winners, right? As a society, we remember winners, not necessarily the runners up. But in TFT, consistency, I think, is one of the hardest things to pull off. And I think a player like Adreh should definitely be commended for the ability to finish in second and third for all of the lobbies so far. And that's really hard to do in such a game that has RNG involved to be that consistent. That's the mark of a really great player. But that last step is to be the victor of a lobby in the end. And the reason why I took the time is because we're here at the beginning of this lobby, the last lobby, which is lobby four. Nature's sitting pretty. It's all about number two and number three. We've got some cybernetic players, which seems to me like the most consistent comp we've seen so far today.
So interestingly enough, Ajay has a very strong board himself. He has a double Vanguard, which is extremely strong in the early game meta. And then he has Space Pirate. So this should help him a lot and get him some gold. And one thing I want to comment on is that I'm very, very sad that we did not get a single galaxy in tonight's Fight Night Rising.
Oh no! It's like I think you have a 55% or 65% chance to get a galaxy.
Yeah, and
Uh,
we're cursed, it seems, tonight.
that's unfortunate. Oh man, that's a feels bad. But you know what? Maybe the competitors like that though, in terms of like
Oh,
competitive
yes.
integrity.
Normal Galaxy is honestly one of the best galaxies for me, I won't lie, just because it's very stable. But as like a
Ooh,
viewer or as a caster, I would love to get some. And
I
then
like.
again, commenting the map, right?
This one's the Yasuo one. I know this is the Yasuo one because I remember seeing this and being like, "This is the one I'm gonna buy." So calming. I like circles just in general. I think that it's like a good like calming shape. Anyway, that's for all you graphic design majors out there. But we're talking about TFT. So Rissa, we're at the early game again. We've talked about cybernetics at length. We've talked about Candyland. What is something that, in terms of the lobby, that you expect maybe in a couple weeks to change? So looking at, you're a very good player yourself. So where do you kind of see the meta moving to in a couple weeks? Do you think it'll be pretty similar throughout until the next patch, or do you think some of these players are going to be discovering something pretty special?
So I think definitely it's gonna start at the start of new patch, as you saw even tonight. There's been like 5 to like even 8 different comps, right? But obviously, like as a meta focuses, you're going to really just see 4 to 2 comps even being spam played a lot more by players. How I see the meta shifting is I do think Cybernetics is going to be in every single lobby, and then outside of that is figuring out the consistency of the other comps. So Rebel slash Brawler Blasters, I think is very consistent. Rebels need to be tested out a lot more by players to see what is the best method in reaching that end goal. And then we have what my favoritism is on all these reroll comps of the Candyland versus the Pikachu comp. And for those comp, I don't know if I see it becoming the meta, but I am curious to see if players can figure out a strategy to play consistently enough so that it becomes a meta. And although it sounds fun right now, it could also become very toxic when someone does develop that strategy, because then
Yeah,
you
once
constantly have people trying to restart it.
once they unlock those items, right? the
Right.
maximum for the items build, the positioning as well. Like there's still some discovery that needs to happen for some of these comps. I like what I see so far, but just like Agrol back in the last set, that became pretty toxic after a while. And there's a little bit of that involved in this Candyland comp because it's still rolling early, three-starring your 1 and 2 cost units really early, and very much like old Agrol was with Ivern and your Woodland Druids and Nico, for example. So that could definitely be the case, but we're at a new patch. This is new stuff, and we've gotten to see kind of like the flavor of the month. We got a buffet of comps throughout all of these lobbies, so we've been very, very lucky. If you're tuning in for the Starside Invitation, that's going to be happening after this. It's going to be huge, and Doa casting that one. Crowan is going to be competing there, as well as a lot of the other NA Fight Night participants. I think 7 out of 8 of the NA players are from Giant Slayer Fight Night from the lobbies from Tuesday that just got finished up. I'm really excited about that, especially since it's regional play, NA versus China. As we go back into this lobby, Narkez sitting at the bottom once more. We got some chronos. The other thing that we haven't been seeing, because I think it's easy to talk about what we have been seeing, what we haven't been seeing again is Kale and even like chrono in the late game to a certain extent. You mentioned that it's a mid game comp, but what have you seen in terms of the difference between comps that win and the comps that kind of get third or fourth, like the ones that Adreh are running?
So I think it's really just a huge difference between the pivoting between middle to late game. So with the late game players, you hit your win conditions, right? You either have perfect items Aurelia, 3-star Aurelia, or you have your 3-star Space Jam. So those are win conditions. Versus Adreh, I feel like he's been building a steady comp, but he hasn't had the chance to get those perfect items or a 3-star unit that can carry him through. That makes a difference between just fourth for third place to first place.
All right. And I think that's just like one of those things that good players are really good at identifying, right? Is one of the biggest differences when I would be talking to really good players is knowing when you are in a top four situation versus a lobby win situation. And it's okay. Like you said, a top four is a win. It's still points, but you got Nature sitting up there with almost a perfect score. And I'm going to be one to try to take him down and avoid potentially the high. I think, I don't know. We got to look at the record books, but that's got to be up there for highest point totals ever for game night, especially if he's able to finish in top two again, because you did, like you said, get eighth in your last lobby. When you were up there competing for that point total. But let's take a look at Sphinx here, someone that we actually haven't been doing a ton of talking about. We got Zeke's Herald, and it's so funny because in the Little Legends Discord, we had been talking about Zeke's and how it is a little bit of an undervalued item. What do you think about an item like Zeke's that definitely has its place, but not necessarily one where you build it, as opposed to how Sphinx did it right
So
now?
I think Zeke's is very strong. Obviously, depending on the build you want, attack speed in general is very great, and Zeke's got a huge buff. Even though it was only the two tiles to left and right and the initial unit, the attack speed early on can just be so strong for your early or late game comp. Agree that I most likely would not have slammed it early though, because it's one of those buff comps that once you settle, you want to make sure you know which unit you want to put it on
Hmm.
and etc. Versus when you slam it early game, which right now is on Vanguards, which isn't the worst because Jason Darius is strong early game, but with Turtles in mid game, that's gonna get awkward once you start finding a little bit more carry damage. It's like, do you sell your Leona instantly? When do you pivot out of it, etc.? And then, as you mentioned before, Sword is a really strong item. Giant Slayer for Jinxes or GA. There's a few other options that normally I would opt out for.
So we'll see. And Mort actually came in and talked about how he thinks it's an S tier item if you find it on a carousel. So maybe Sphinx trying to bring it into the early game, and it's notoriously been a pretty good early game comp. Uh, Throughout its kind of, I think, relevancy. I remember when stacking Zeeks and Lockets was a thing
Oh
back in
yes,
set one. That was
make your
awful.
row of people stack as many
Yeah.
lockets and seeks as you could.
Yeah, exactly. So they just moved it into Rebels instead. But the moral of the story is Zeke is going to push out more damage, attack speed. We've talked about at length being how you develop ultimates, how you can push a little bit extra damage, but it's you got to put it on the right units. And when you're not putting it on the right units, it just becomes awkward. And putting it on a Leona is a little awkward. But we did just see an IE bloodthirst Leona get second in the last
Hmm.
lobby. So you never know.
Yeah.
As that's a super early Cho'Gath that he's going to pass because he's not going that direction. And again, you only see units like that that
I
early when
might
you don't
have
know
picked up
them.
the Cho'Gath because there's still the potential to actually go for Blaster Brawlers here, seeing how he hit the Lucian and the Graves already. But then
It's
again,
true.
you don't want to destroy your econ too much. I would have sold the Jarvan and maybe even the Caitlyn's, but it seems like he might be going for he's set on his build already, which is why
Mhm.
he didn't pick up the Cho'Gath. And then one thing to mention as well, the concept, as Mortar has said, that it's a S tier item if you discover on Carousel, but not something you per se may want to make, that goes along with Shroud of Stillness, right? Shroud of Stillness, when you look at the item, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna go build Shroud of Stillness every single game.
Yeah.
There's no desire for that because it's not something that
Uh-huh.
like carries you, but it does do a lot of work in slowing down your opponents from ulting. So it's an item that you do get it on character. You're like, oh, neat, yeah, it could come in handy depending on what we're
Mhm.
against.
And that's just like how awesome this game is to me is how an item, if it's already built, becomes S tier versus investing in it with components because they're your component like items, like you said, with those swords, with those bows, and then once you get that Shroud of Stillness, I've lost rounds because of Shroud of Stillness positioning. You got to give it to the devs too. The way that Shroud of Stillness works is really really cool in terms of the fantasy of the game and positioning. Like anything kind of like Blitzcrank where positioning matters is I think really good game design. So props to them and props to them for making items like Locket or Zeke's and Shroud of Stillness viable in certain situations. It's not like if you get a Shroud of Stillness late game, you're just wasting it.
For sure, I definitely agree. And then itemization is probably one of the most fun concepts, and I feel like, the most important concept in TFT.
Yeah.
Positioning, important for sure, but I would say position was maybe top tier for me in terms of priority in set 1. Set 3, definitely still important to a certain extent, but I think itemization is what really wins you or lose you the game. Sure, you can hit your combo, you hit your Irelia 3s even and KL 3s, but if you had terrible items on them, they're not gonna do much for you to a certain extent compared to a perfect, 3 items on a carry that someone else is doing.
So Erica not going cybernetics right now.
She
Maybe
will though.
she will. It's two of them are on the board, but
Yep.
for her, two rods and a tier, not the greatest item set. You can work with it, but not the greatest. You're the cybernetic master here on the
So
casting desk. What would you do with two rods and a tier?
Def Cap for sure, actually. So although it may not seem ideal initially looking at Def Cap is actually a very good item on Irelia since the idea is just for it to jump and kill someone, right? So I tend to go for the IE path, but I've definitely seen Def Cap or even double Def Cap on Irelia. And other than that, I would definitely hold to try to see if I could get an IE, but Slamming Hodge, Def Cap, and Last Whisper would not be the worst. A little awkward because Last Whisper and Def you're going for two different approaches of autoing attack and also
Yeah.
AP. So you do have to choose, but it won't be the worst situation in terms of just general items for Irelia.
Uh-huh. So the other thing is we the lobby's still kind of filling out, so we get a little bit of time to talk about something stupid. Best dance in the game right now. Who's your favorite dance?
Interestingly enough, I never really noticed them dancing. I just didn't even realize it was like a concept until maybe last patch where a lot of people were playing Bang Bros or Slash Bros, and
Uh-huh.
then there'll be that one Yi that like kills off everyone, and they start dancing at the end of it, and it just reminds me of League of Legends and how toxic it is. And I'm just like, look at that Master Yi dancing on the dead bodies right now. So
Yeah.
until that moment, though, I actually didn't really think about or realize that they were dancing after they won. So
That's funny. That is something that I'd look. It's like you're looking past it, like you're looking through them, right? Like it's going on and it's happening, but for some reason you're just not seeing it. So what I would like to do is hopefully this Jace lives because the reason why Jace is my favorite dance is because it looks like he's pooping. Like that he's like really having a hard time with it too. So
interesting.
it makes me laugh so hard every time I see it. So hopefully one of these Jaces survives. It has to be the Jace that we're watching because it has to be from behind. But it's really really funny, at least to me, because I might be a boomer in age, but I'm 4 years old up here.
Unfortunately, the Jace does die off, so we may not be able to see it that round. But one thing is that Adreh actually found a gangplank already. So would he switch over for more Rebels pathing, or he's committed to that Blaster Brawlers because we see the Cho'Gath and the double Blitzcrank on the bench. Either way, Jinx is going to be a carry, so we'll see if he ends up
Mhm.
throwing a Sigs in there just to do Demolitionist and Brawler Blaster potentially.
Yeah, and that's actually something that we haven't seen a ton of is that Demolitionist, where all three Demolitionist characters got buffed. But I think because of the fact that Rumble, I think, is going to be harder to find just in general, even though his level three, whereas tier three got a huge damage buff.
Was it
No
not
one.
Adreh who had the Gangplank though? Ash, sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
no
it was
worries.
it's Nature's
Two
over here.
Gangplank, man.
Never
This
mind.
he
Yeah,
needs to go to
not
Vegas.
Adreh.
He needs to go to Vegas right now. Um,
Adreh was running Jinx as well, but it was actually Nature's here with the Jinx and double Gangplank now.
I would love for someone to crunch the numbers as to like what like the one out of so and so chances are for something like that to happen. Even though the Gangplanks didn't do anything, the Gangplank. Let's talk about the buff a little bit because he was a very polarizing figure back in the day. Was arguably one of the most broken champs the set has seen. Level one Gangplanks would wipe out entire teams because of a demo trait. But why is it better? This time around, why aren't we seeing that Gangplank dominance?
I don't think it's so much of a dominance issue, but simply because Demolitions, I do think can still dominate. There's the faster impact, which is really nice for the gameplay. But I think with the damage nerfs, etc., and other stuff like that, it's not like a one hit KO from Gangplank and all the units are stunned and dead. So I think those nerfs were nice, but the faster impact definitely makes him relevant once again. I'm
Mhm.
really hoping to see Natures be able to hit a Ziggs in this condition because, as you saw from the last fight, they did damage for sure, but, I don't know how impactful. Oh, Nisha's running 4 Space Pirates. Will he actually get a lot of items from this or not? I'm very
It's
curious.
really early. It's 4-1, just like how impressive it was for an Irelia to be 2-star, to have 2 Gangplanks on a 1% chance. That's nuts. And why not? You've already won the lobby, like, the entire thing already based off of your point total, so why not do something pretty crazy here? He's gonna get a 2-star. Man, this guy is lucky. I hope he does something with this luck at some point, today because you can't waste it. You're on a roll at this point as we finally see a mech for the first time, I think, in 3 lobbies, and that HP difference is shown.
I'm surprised he didn't pick up the, Ziggs here, or maybe he still will, just for the Demolitionist. But to be fair, Nature's technically won this lobby, so I'm not surprised he's after hitting the double gangplank that he just wants to do something for fun. And the most interesting part about all this is that it's working.
I know. That's it's again, sometimes you fall into these compositions and this only works if you get a gangplank this early and he's able to do it. We'll check in on him a little bit later, but someone that I want to bring our attention to is actually Adreh, who you said had a very very good early and mid game, which is the truth. But as the darkness continues to consume him, he's actually finding himself at the bottom side and another 5-star champion on that 1% chance. This time on the ASOL, we got some brawlers, rebels, and some blasters for him, which you would assume would be good at this point in time.
Yeah, and this just brings me back, like, if this was patch 1, like, hitting this Gangplank and ASOS would be so tilted for everyone else in the lobby. It's like, "You're level 7, how do you hit it already?"
Back in
But in
my
this case
day.
scenario, it's not that bad. But Adreh seems he had definitely gotten his powers, but he has double Giant
Mhm.
Slayer, and he just kind of pushes through and, kills Final over here. But Final is uncontested this time for Mech, I believe, unless we take a look at Sphinx and somehow we see Mech infiltrated once again. Pretty sure Final is uncontested, and I'm curious to see what the power of a uncontested mech can do.
It seems like, based off of just this lobby, even though at the beginning of the show, we were like, mechs can definitely still be viable, but I think we also said it's only if you're like the only one, right? Because it was hard when there were two mech players before. It's even harder now. And I think the thing that might
Sphinx
have
is going mech infiltrator.
you called it. You called it. They're gonna hold hands once again.
They're best
Um,
buddies.
yeah. So something that I wanted to talk about though, in terms of mech, as he is using his Zeeks on his Shaco, which is much better now because he's a little bit more auto attack based than spell based, is when they pop out of the mech, these units don't have mana anymore. And I think that's actually been a bigger deal based off of what I've seen than at least I had anticipated.
Yeah, for sure. There's just a lot going on right now. I'm just seeing the mech inflictors getting hit hard. It's because none of them has tier 3 their units yet, and that's because it's contested. So so by this time it's getting a little longer to tier 3 your unit.
Yep, we got Final gonna pick first. That is one of our mech players. Dreamericaa sitting at 54. Remember, this is a very, very close lobby. Basically, if you're Dreamericaa, Adreh, if you finish in the top three, you're the top three. So that's what you're going for. So in terms of everyone else, you've got to make sure to beat Dreamericaa. So I think that's she's probably the closest to third place right now. So your goal in the lobby right now is to finish ahead of the one that we're seeing right now. That's going to put you in a better position. So far, Sphinx doing a really good job. He has to finish second, pretty much, to try to get into that top three. But I guess just goes to show how close this lobby is and the pressure. What do you think is more pressure packed? The fact that she's coming back from an eighth place finish in lobby one, or has to finish in the top four in this lobby to get invited back? What would make you more nervous?
I think if it was still game two, I would be really. The second you get eighth in a tournament, you just feel so doomed. Because obviously you get the least amount of points, and you're just like, oh gosh, there's so much to come from. But seeing how great Erica has played in games two and three, I think that pressure is a little bit off, and she's just
Hmm.
more focused on having the top four. So as you mentioned, in this strategy, I definitely would just be aiming for a top four, guarantee that top three spot since number one, unfortunately, is not possible anymore. And Erica does take a big hit. These Jinx players are really showing their power. We see it relevant in every single lobby. No Chrono KL this time, and just a bunch of Jinx instead.
It seems to be the direct counter to some of our tankier players, the ones that run in Candyland. No Candyland so far from any of our players, even though it did do quite well for Nature's getting a second place. It hasn't won a lobby just yet, so feeling like a top four comp. But again, the itemization has not been maximized. The positioning has not been maximized. So we might see that come back with a vengeance a little bit later. But look how close this lobby is just in general. We got Final at 30 HP, and just at the very top is Gunmay at 65. That 35 HP difference at this point in time is actually not that large. This is still anyone's game.
Yeah, and then one thing with Gunmay too, he's actually one of the only players that played a diversity of comps today. He has
Hmm.
not played the same comp for any of his game. He played Space Jam into a Pikachu comp into Candyland, and now he's playing Blasters.
Which feels so boring compared to everything else that he is playing.
It is, but
Um,
it shows diversity, which is
Yeah,
what I'm hoping
exactly.
for.
Some flexibility, some diversity. That's always really good if you're a player. And a player that diverse is going to be able to transition really well just in general. And that means that the identification of game state is really, really high for a player like Gunmay, or maybe he's just a risk taker. And someone else that needs to go to Vegas and put everything on black, you know? I could definitely see a player like Gunmay doing just that, as he's going to maintain his position at the top. Final, though, very close to being eliminated.
So very interesting here with Gnard Dawg is he's our first six Dark Star players for tonight, which is something that I'm surprised haven't been playing more of. Definitely, I know one of our contestants for Giant Slayer series, and also later on, Milk has been spamming Dark Stars a lot. And it's been very inconsistent for him. Sometimes he's like, "Oh, it's the best comp ever!" Like I got like first, third, or fourth with it, and then other times he's like, dude, I just ate constantly. What's going on? So I Darkseid is something I'm very curious to see if it's still very relevant. I think Zerath is still a very strong unit. The only thing that I was surprised about is that he Jade his Shaco instead of his Jin or Zerath. And that is a move that I'm a bit more confused about since after the Shaco nerfs, he's not really the main unit that you really care for in Darksiders anymore. It's really your Seraph and your Jin putting in work. So I'm surprised that he wants to keep that Shaco alive longer compared to the other units that he had the option for.
He's got a lot of work to do. He's not even done putting his items on just yet, as he's making an infiltrator Zareth just for the attack speed buff, attack speed based character. And it's great that we get to talk about a different comp here. Zareth got a heavy nerf in the last patch. His AoE damage is down by 50%, along with some just regular damage nerfs. But it seems to work out when the Dark Star tree comes in. You're going to get more damage anyway. And you said you're surprised about this Dark Star. He's got some level ones, but it seems to be working out for him. He hyper rolled down quite a bit to find these units. Sitting on the Karma for now, doesn't have a way to put it in, has the Infiltrator. A little bit of a blender comp here. What is the goal in terms of the end game here, in terms of items, who your carry is? You said Shaco was a weird one. Who would you have rather it be? You said Jen earlier. Jen.
Yeah, I think Jin would definitely be my best option here. Seraph, as we saw from the last fight, is still very powerful, so it's not bad on him. But said, GA on Sarah may be a little more awkward. Ideally, you want to have the Quicksilver that he already has, and then 2 bow items. So I definitely would have put the the GA onto the Jin instead. And then the reason for not picking up the Karma is because I don't think he's trying to 3-star his Karma. He already has the Karma 2 on the
On the bench, yeah.
yes.
The dark stars all look the same to me.
That's
Like
fair.
it's like it's the same reason why I still buy XP instead of refresh on accident. Still, but the dark stars all are very similar, and I think that in terms of viability, the 6 dark star is almost required if you want these units to do what they're supposed to do. Something else that I want to bring everyone's attention to is final and these infiltrators. We got the Morellos on the Kaisa, which is a great item on her, but are you running out of time? This is a conversation that we've also had a couple times. Is we're only at 5-3 and you're at 8 HP. The wick is burning right now. As we look at the scores, Naturesbf will be winning this lobby. It's all about who's coming after that. Basically, if anyone under Dreamericaa finishes ahead of her, she's out of the top 3, and they get themselves a chance to finish in the top 3.
And the final, I guess, demolish here, I believe. Unfortunately, he tried the different route by going for a sorcerer since he is competed, but competed max, the dream came true. But this does give Sphinx does have. Oh, Sphinx is very close to 7. But the other mech infiltrator is and we have seen situations where when it is contested, you wait out for the other person to die, and you do have gold, you roll it down and try to hit your 3 stars, and you can come back from it. So that's the hope, but
Fingers crossed. Let's go to Sphinx after the carousel, just to see how much money he has, because that will definitely determine if he's going to be able to roll into some of the tier 3 units, which are all harder to get anyway. And that's one of the nerfs to the mech too. That's not mech related, but kind of game related. Is if you want that tier 3 mech, all of those units outside of every unit outside of 1 cost is going to be rarer to 3-star just in general based off of drop rates. So because of that, it's going to be harder to 3-star that mech who's already squishier. So maybe these nerfs a lot harder than anticipated for some of these players. But we've got Sphinx who had a lot of gold, and he saw his friend. He was like Rose on top of the thing, letting Jeff go. Right? He's like, "I'll survive for you." And now he's trying to keep his necklace and roll into more of these mechs because he's going to need to if he is going to want to survive.
these roles has been pretty tragic so far, though. I won't lie. It seems like he only found 1 Annie, 1 Rumble, which he was like, "I'm not gonna hit that Rumble anyway." Sold it, and are
3-star
they
Shaco,
gonna?
though.
Yeah, but Shaco is a lot weaker now in the meta,
Yeah.
so it seems like the prophecy has came true with
Yep.
Mech Infiltrator holding hands 7 and 8. How adorable.
Yikers. Sometimes I feel like you should like gentleman's handshake, right? Be like, "Hey everyone, let me just try this. It's for science, right?" No. It was really funny like how I was like, "Shaco's 3 stars." You were like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like, that's cool. Like,
yeah, we
but
got to
not
see
the
it."
crucial unit. Like,
Yeah.
because crucial unit-wise, you want your Annie and especially your Kaisa 3-starred. And then after that, you focus on the Rumbles. Chico is always the one that you're just like, I don't really care if I 3-star or not. A lot of times, they might actually just push your level and forget about the 3-star if you hit everything else already.
As we are back to Adreh, who has found himself in that mid-game situation where he's doing really great. I love the Ionic Spark on the ASOL. I've actually not thought about that before, but that's a really great way to maximize that item. But too much damage from the other side is Narkez with his. We finally have a Chrono Kale slash Valkyrie comp.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't seen that more from Narcus, because I know I was actually taking advice from him on how to play Chrono KL the other day, so I was surprised to not see him play the comp more often. But now he is 6,000 damage on that KL, doing very good work.
And is it going to be enough potentially to make the upset happen?
Nature's got demolitionist stat,
Oh
which
my
I think
god. The
is
man is
hilarious.
lucky. The man is lucky. I would like
Yeah,
some of that.
yeah.
You have extra, obviously. So please give it to me. As the Hextech Gunblade is it's an alright item. It's I feel like an item that has attempted to be relevant many a time, but has only been good on ASOL and maybe a couple other ones. I feel like Gunblade, the lifesteal, being in the middle, right? It's not quite as much as a Bloodthirster, and the AP is not quite there. It almost feels like a waste? Tell me if I'm wrong.
Um, it does feel a little bit of a waste, honestly. Like gunplay here in the scenario, especially with that comp, it's like, what's it gonna really do for you?
Yeah.
I mean, ideal situation, even if you don't, it's not ideal items. Like any tier items is actually something I'm happy for towards the end. It's like, why not get this unit to at least ult a little quicker? So we have
Whew.
Adreh versus Gunmay here. So two Jinx comps, one Brawler Blaster. I believe the other one is Rebels, and Gunmay takes it with a Brawler Blaster.
That's huge for Gunmay because remember, I want to bring this up again. If Gunmay finishes ahead of Erica, he will be in that third place. But look at how close this lobby is, Rissa. You got 13, 11, and 2 for the top four. So basically, let's go ahead and watch Erica. I think would be the best one because she's the gatekeeper, right? She's the one keeping people from that top three. And if she loses
She
this
hit at
round,
Irelia 3 though, so
oh my goodness, with 2 IEs as well. So, and at that point, the last whisper is just as extra.
so we'll have to
Um,
see who she gets against, because
oh,
I
she's actually
think
facing a
Nature's comp would
ghost.
have actually been kind of scary for her due to Demolitionist and no Trap or QSS on the Aurelia, but
Mhm.
for this one, I think she should be able to. Yep, jumping through. Oh no,
Oh my goodness.
The Jake just one-shotted her. Is this it for her? I
I don't.
believe so,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness! So Dreamericaa at the last moment finishes fourth, with Gunmay finishing ahead of her. So that I believe guarantees our top three, which will be Adreh, Natures, who finishes in the top three once again. Um,
Interesting choice there. So he had the option for a Lulu 2, and Adreh decided to not go for it, roll it down, sell the Ezreal, and then managed to get lucky and to hit the Valkyrie on the MF instead.
Oh man, this could not have gone to the wire, man. That last score screen is going to be really, really close. Now it's all about those bragging rights. Who will win our fourth lobby? Look at how much damage is
Oof.
being done. That just kind of goes to show what you were saying earlier is that these later rounds are actually quicker than those first rounds. As we still have 3 players remaining on the 6-4 carousel. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they survived the ghost round, and lucky for Gunmay, who has the most health of them all, that he did take a hit here, but Gunmay should still be alive no matter what after this round. So if Adreh and Natures, who has a very high chance of going against each other since they weren't against the ghost last time, if they go against each other, then Gunmay should be guaranteed a top 2 in this lobby with his health pool.
Yeah, and that would put the cherry on top in terms of sneaking into that top three, and then you can't help but go back to that eighth place finish for Dream Air. What a roller coaster of emotions she must
Yeah,
have
what
gone
a
through.
game. Irelia 3 going 4th is just a very feels bad moment, but it just shows how strong that these comps are with these jinxes.
And demolitionist misfortune with rebel buff. That means after that ult, you're sticking in that ult.
Every
So
single top 3 comp here is actually running a jinx.
that's some really good data. I'd love to kind of go over that a little bit at the post show in terms of that's more. It was like it wasn't that much at the first game, and now we're seeing it and we're believing it right now as misfortunes also
Gunmay take
showing
another
up.
hit, but Nature's with his demoliciousness and GPs from level 7 has finally went out.
Yeah, so he gets a third place, but you got to give props to that man, especially the luck gods as well, because he got 2 Gangplank 5s out of 1%. Not Gangplank 5s. He got 2 5 cost Gangplanks at the 1% mark. But now
Mhm.
it's up to these 2 players. We might get another round if the 16 is a little too high and Gummay loses this round. But this is potentially the last round of Fight Night. Remember, the Starside Invitational is going to be going on after this. Definitely stay tuned for that. If you're a TFT level, that's going to be some really great play. And this potentially is going to be it as Adreh is going to be on the red side. The Cho'Gath ult definitely helps. And the Misfortune ult definitely could have found a little bit more value. And the
I
Vi gets
know,
blasted
Gunmay!
out. And Gunmay is going to finish in his second. And finally, Adreh is going to win the lobby we were talking about. If you want to be a great player, you can be consistent. But if you want to be the best player, you've got to win that lobby. And that's exactly what happens. I believe our top three will be Gunmay, Adreh, and Nature's BF, with Dreamericaa finishing in fourth. roller coaster of a day for her. But let's talk about Jinx real quick as we get the final tally. Nature's be
Oh, wait, no,
Dreamericaa.
Gunmay is higher, it's just not sorted right, just gotta flip
Who
those 2 a
almost got
little bit.
debated. Almost got
It
debated
was a
there.
trick to get Boop, actually, yes.
Yeah. I get on my rolls, but let's talk about it because the reason why Dreamericaa finished fourth is because of Jinx. And in our first lobby, we saw some spatterings. It wasn't something that people committed to. And by the fourth lobby, our top three were all running it. What was the difference? What was the change?
Well, I think in general, seeing from at least tonight's lobby, as you mentioned before, Jinx 2 prevalent in the first few games, but people just saw how strong it was. And by the last game, we had 3 players running it and getting top 3 with it. For Dreamericaa's positioning, I do think that she will have the possibility of going first place, but positioning is just so important. Just because it's the
Mhm.
question of can that Aurelia jump to that Jinx, or will Jinx stay so protected that she'll just eventually destroy the entire lobby. And unfortunately for her, with some position differences, depending on what the Blitzcrank pulls, how quick the Jinx proxy ult, she was unable to get to Jinx in time.
Oh, man, I don't think I've ever seen an Irelia 3 get fourth place. Like, to me, we were talking about it earlier, it feels like an automatic top 2, but the Jinx is coming on strong. She got excited. She got the lobby win, as well as Nature is completely dominating this lobby. The luck on this, man, is something that I will remember for a long time, but that's going to be it for us. So, Rissa, do you have any final words for our friends at home?
Yeah, of course. So definitely want you to talk a little bit about Starside Invitationals and the format a little bit more. The casters will fill you in on that for the next set, which was going to be Doa and Yuja. And but just to give you guys a little insight, the format is very similar to our Giant Slayer series, but instead of it going throughout for 4 weeks, we're gonna jam it all pack within 4 days. So that is going to happen about 14 minutes from now. We're scheduled for 6 p.m. PST, and the it's so exciting because this is going to be one of the first tournaments where we actually have a region versus a
Yeah, I'm so
region.
excited for it.
So we've seen from Riot Invitationals, there's Chinese players, EU players, and NA players all kind of together, but that's not a great representation of saying like if the Chinese player won, it just means China's great and this right.
You
But
can
in
brag
this,
about it. You
you
can say
could
that, but
definitely have bragging
not
rights.
maybe not the truth.
But in this case scenario, we have top 8 China players versus top 8 NA players, and they're just going head to head. And we made sure that we have 4 Chinese players in every lobby and also 4 NA players. So we have that very set already. So I'm excited to see if we're going to see similar comps where we're going to see a lot of blasters, or if the from China players, which I don't know the Chinese meta that well, if they're going to
Mhm.
bring in something completely unique that I haven't even seen before, and that would be very fun to watch.
Like, infiltrator, no neck fizz. With
I don't
you
know
know?
about that one. I don't know about running mech without the infiltrators.
Well, thank you so much, Rissa. It was an absolute pleasure casting with you. For those of you at home who didn't know, because she did such a great job, this was her first one. I don't think anyone could have known that based off of your performance today. So really good stuff. Hopefully, you keep casting. Is this something that you want to keep doing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for those of you who don't know, I'm actually the TFT coordinator for Giant Slayer. So normally I'm behind the scenes messaging other players, and I will be there for side invitation for that as well. But casting it once in a while on camera, it was really great to be here. And then Boop, obviously, thank you for making being an amazing co-caster as well. Makes this really comfortable and easy for me. And if you have anything to shout out, like please do.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me back. It's been a while since I've been on the Giant Slayer channel, and this is one of the best groups in terms of TFT. The reason why we have a community part of it is because of Giant Slayer. So thank you so much for that, especially for taking part in that charity event a couple weeks ago that raised, I think, $5,000 for COVID relief, which is really, really cool. Like Rissa said, Starside Invitational is going to be happening after this. We're going to have Becca, we're going to have Crowin, and a bunch of other players taking part, and hopefully taking some names too for an A in that tournament. You can find me at Boopasaurusrex on Twitter. I'm also part of the Little Legends podcast with the Blevins. We'll be casting again tomorrow for another tournament. But one thing too, one last thing, Rissa, where can we find you so we can keep up to date with what you're doing?
Yeah, of course. So first, just gotta shout out all the Giant Slayer stuff. So follow this Twitch channel if you have not already. Oh, sorry, just listen. I'm doing thumbs up. No, just gonna do this real quick. But follow Giant Slayer. We also have guys on the Giant Slayer TFT YouTube along with Twitter. So definitely check all those out. And if you guys want some little insight or how I'm feeling about the Giant Slayer stuff, then my name is It's Rissakah on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch as well. I don't stream anymore, but so that's that. And as mentioned before, for those of you who didn't hear it, 10 minutes from now, it's going to be a Stars Invitational. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 10 minutes with Doa and Yuge and amazing players.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Rissa, wonderful job. It was a wonderful time working with you. I hope we get to do it again. But 10 minutes, my friends, is going to be more TFT, and I'm definitely very, very excited for that right here on Giant Slayer TV.